Ready, please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please call to order. Roll call, please.
Benny David. Roger Mayhew.
Yes.
Charles Wiltie.
Here.
Brenda Simmons.
Here.
Mike Scott.
Here. Okay, we need approval of the agenda, but we some have some additions and deletions before we do that. So some of the additions are, Jeff Nichols, Veterans Affairs for Veteran of the Year. The Transit Director, Tony Dubay. He wants to talk about, the option for the failed transit millage. Denise Simmons on her vacancy in the Registered Deeds Office. Brian Gilbert, duties and ministries, Ogemaw County Sheriff's Office. Commissioners. Yeah, we'll go into closed session after the second public comment after 8, so we'll go into closed session for bargaining reasons. And we'll take off 6C. COG membership will come off the current. So I need anybody else have any additions or deletions?
No. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with changes, additions or whatever.
Okay, support Mr. Mayhew, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, public comment, is there any public comment? Any public comment on the Zoom? Okay, we have some action items. We need to approve the 2024 report of taxes to be apportioned pursuant to the General Property Tax Act. Is that here in our?
It is, and just for the board's review, these 4 action items would have been on the agenda last Thursday, but for lack of a quorum, we couldn't act on them. And so because this is a duly posted meeting under the Open Meetings Act, you can do it tonight. So that's all these are.
Okay,
Well, I'd like to make a motion to go ahead and consent A, B, and C. I think you guys are all here to talk about all 3 things. You got the appropriate. Yeah, you got that from the equalization director, and we talked about the examiner. We even passed a motion to make this. This is just a formality to put it on, to make this appointment here, this resolution. And then unless somebody has unless you want to discuss the animal shelter, I thought we were all pretty much agreeing for a 3-month standby.
yeah, Mr. Scott, the only thing I would like to do is on the Chief County Medical Examiner, because I've already made some comments to Tim a couple of weeks ago about that. And I do have some issues.
Well, I'll withdraw my,
Well, wait just a minute, before we withdraw, who did we say was gonna be that?
con.
For Con?
Yeah.
Is it Con?
Wasn't it?
What the
Con or
resolution,
conquit.
resolution does is our statutory obligation to name our medical examiner, that is Dr. Khan. And then he would then just take over the term that was vacated by the previous medical examiner. And as Commissioner Scott said, you have voted on this already in a motion. This is a formality to just document particularly dates and times, expiration.
Con, I agree with him, so I just want to make sure that's what it was before.
Yeah.
We voted was all.
But Charlie's got something he wants to ask.
Go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say, we've been pretty consistent with taking each resolution individually. I wouldn't mind doing that, but I'm okay if we do them combined, but we have 3 of them. I'd like to take them individually.
Go ahead then. Take them individually.
We have a motion.
No,
On the floor, but it wasn't- it
I'll
wasn't
withdraw,
support,
I'll
okay.
withdraw the motion.
Okay,
Thank you.
I need the first one, resolution to approve 2024 report of taxes to be apportioned pursuant to the general property tax. Is that on here?
First one over.
Yes.
No. which way did I go, left or right? Yeah, Veterans Affair. I can't find it.
Hand it over here, I'll get it for you.
I didn't see it earlier either, and I looked for it.
It's not a clean examiner. I don't think
Remember,
you
yours is
Okay, I expected to
backwards.
see something different than that. Okay, I got it.
got read along?
Okay. Yeah, I got it. Okay, I got it. We can read them, each one. If you'd like. Resolution to approve the 2024 Board of Taxes to be apportioned. Oh, it's a long one. Whereas section 36 of the General Property Tax Act, MCL 211.36 requires each township clerk to submit to the county clerk on or before September 30th each year, a statement which sets forth the amount of money to be raised in the township by taxation. And whereas section 37 of Act MCL 211.37 requires the County Board of Commissioners to hold an apportionment session, approve an apportionment report in October of each year. And whereas section 52 of the Construction Improvement and Maintenance of Highways of Act MCL 247.452 requires that the Board of Commissioners approve the annual apportionment report at their annual October meeting. And whereas
I think,
So this is
I think you summed it up pretty good.
okay, whereas the annual apportionment session of the County Board of Commissioners must examine documents. Okay. Report of taxation to be apportioned, County of State of Michigan. Wow, it's long. So that's what we're doing.
Yep, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
Yeah,
A second.
roll call?
Roger Mayhew,
Yes.
Charles Wiltie,
Yes.
Brenda Simmons.
Yes.
Craig Scott.
Yes.
Now I need the one to appoint the medical examiner. Whereas section 1 of the County Medical Examiners Act MCL 52-201 requires the Board of Commissioners to appoint a county medical examiner to hold office for a period of 4 years. And on March 23rd, the board approved resolution 2344 to approve an agreement with the Michigan Institute of Forensic Science Medicine to provide comprehensive medical examiner services through March 31st, 2027.
I'll make the
Wait a minute, whereas on September 27th, MIFSM notified Ogemaw County that Dr. Roshan, Mahaber
that'll work.
stepped down from his position as chief medical examiner, whereas MIFSM recommended Dr. Ali Khan as chief medical examiner through the remainder of, should be say, the remainder of the agreement. And whereas the state statute compels medical examiners to be licensed as physicians in the state of Michigan and secure approval of chief medical examiner, and whereas MIFSM has verified that Dr. Khan meets those requirements, whereas the board approved a motion to appoint Dr. Khan, Ogemaw County Chief Medical Examiner at the committee's whole meeting, whereas the board wishes to memorialize the appointment through adoption of a formal resolution, therefore be resolved that Ogemaw County Board of Commissioners hereby reaffirms its motion to appoint Dr. Ali Khan as Chief Medical Examiner for Ogemaw County, effective upon the resolution of this through March 31st, 2027.
Motion to approve the resolution.
That's a question.
Yes.
So that's 2 weeks ago today, we met with them. Has there been anything in the last 2 weeks? Have we had anything within the county? That you were aware of any types of?
Just trying to remember, I don't think I've had anybody ask about this.
We don't have a second motion yet. I'll second the motion. Okay, there's now your questions. One question I have is this MIFSM. MIFSM. Do we have a contract with them
Yes.
for a forensic pathologist?
I don't think that is
No,
specifically.
medical examiner.
Just a moment here, because I have the contract.
This is just for the medical examiner though. This is not for the pathologist.
Exactly. As I'm glancing through this, just for reference, the statute requires only that the medical examiner be a licensed physician, and that's it. Now, when it comes to performing the actual autopsies, there may be something within the medical field that requires a pathologist. I wouldn't know what that was, but that's not what we contracted for. We contracted for medical examiner services.
Okay, the reason I say that is because this document, my understanding is I'd like to, if he's a forensic pathologist, I'd like to see his credentials, but I don't think he is.
So we did have his resume at a prior meeting. I can't recite to you.
Well, your
on
resume can
there.
say anything.
Sure.
I want to see the actual documentation, because I don't believe he is.
I don't think that he has to be,
Well, I need a forensic,
wait a minute.
sorry.
The medical examiner has to tell us that the dead person's dead. Now, he can have a pathologist within their staff that can do the work.
But I don't think
The
he has.
medical examiner, the chief medical examiner I don't think has to be a pathologist.
I don't think MIFSM doesn't have a forensic pathologist on their staff.
They may or may not. I don't.
That's true of many of the medical examiner providers across the state, and that's why they will then contract with another provider. And I recall some of our counties, another organization, they will actually contract with Western Michigan University and Sparrow down in Lansing to do the pathology work. So if they have a case where they have to have that service, but they don't have anybody within their organization with those credentials. And just glancing at the requirements under the contract, again, it's very general, towing the line on the statute itself. It does allow for the contractor to assign others to perform work, but they shall, under our contract, assign only competent personnel to perform the work that they're requiring. Okay. It does not tell them in the contract what to do or who to contact. It just says they're now responsible for finding the competent individual to do that work. And that's, frankly, it's a good way for the county to have a contract written, because now you're not tying anybody's hands, and we're not experts in this field.
Well, and I
We wouldn't
understand
know
that, and that's why I thought maybe you would talk to the prosecutor, because if they need somebody to go to court for them, you need a forensic pathologist, not
Right.
a medical examiner.
Exactly, and it would be up to our contractor, in this case MISFM, to find that qualified individual. And if they fail to do that, then they're not operating within the contract, and that would lead to some other conversations later on. But it is incumbent upon them as our contractor to assign only the competent personnel to do that work.
Okay, so we have a motion and a support on this for this chief county medical examiner. And we don't need a roll call on that, do I? No.
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed. 2. There's an animal shelter services agreement. According to property tax, I can't find that either. You got it on here.
It's there, yeah.
Here it is. Okay, May 22nd, 1975, the Ogemaw County Board of Commissioners approved the Ogemaw County Dog Ordinance pursuant to the Dog Law of 1919, being MCL 287-26. Whereas the ordinance requires that the county shall provide for an adequate pound to be maintained by the dog warden or other designated person to shelter animals. Whereas the Ogemaw County Humane Society, doing business as Ray Family Animal Shelter, is a Michigan nonprofit corporation qualified to perform and provide necessary animal sheltering services. So right now, the county has limited funding to support taking animals to an animal shelter. Whereas the limited funding for animal shelter services included in the FY 2024 Ogemaw County budget pending the outcome of a special millage ballot question. And whereas the parties desire to enter into an interim agreement for animal shelter services, therefore it be resolved that Ogemaw County Board of Commissioners hereby approves the attached animal shelter services agreement to become effective upon signing. Be it further resolved that this agreement shall continue through December 31st, 2024, unless terminated by either party upon 30 days written notice. Be it further resolved that the county agrees to compensate Brave Family Animal Shelter amount not to exceed $3,000 per month for up to 12 dogs. Be it further resolved that the Board of Commissioners authorize the board chairperson to sign any documents necessary to implement this resolution, subject to approve as to form by the county attorney. And that this is attached, and it's just a basic contract about that they we can take animals there because we have money. I mean, we could have a contract with several animal shelters, but so it doesn't mean that we have to take it to this animal shelter, but it gives us an animal shelter to go to for right now until the millage for November comes along. So, any questions? Oh.
No,
motion?
I'll make the motion to pass it.
Motion,
Support.
support? Any questions? Any discussion? I have to have roll call on this one, don't I?
Mhm.
It's money. Roll call.
Brenda Simmons.
Yes.
Craig Scott.
Yes,
Roger Mayhew.
Yes.
Charles Wiltie.
Yes.
And then we have claims.
claims, I looked over the claims. I was the only one that looked over the claims. There was nothing so alarming.
Need a motion with the amount.
Yeah, let me pull it up here. I'll make a motion to approve the claims at 140,000, 146,000.22.
See that amount one more time, please.
140,146.22.
Oh, I don't have 146.
140,146.22. It says with add-on. That's what it says. Gives me a total here on the bottom.
In the
Okay.
Blue.
in the blue.
Yeah, mine doesn't say that, but yours has
Oh.
been corrected. Mine says $140,096.22. So there was an add-on?
There was one that was added. It should be on, I'm looking at the same thing. It's right there at the
In
bottom.
blue. You see that right there?
Oh,
See that?
I guess I didn't recognize
take
that. I thought it was
your
some
fingers
sort of
and spread
code.
it.
There's no comment in there, making it 140,000.
Take your fingers and spread it out wider.
There was no comma, you're right.
I thought it was some sort of code,
Well,
And
I'll
and-
I'll approve the code.
and there's no dollar sign either, so,
Okay,
okay, I need a motion to approve.
I made the motion to approve.
I'll second. Roll call, please.
Craig Scott.
Yes,
Roger Mayhew.
Yes.
Charles Wiltie.
Yes.
Brenda Simmons.
Yes,
I would like to say this one thing for the next committee of the whole meeting, that we discuss the matter of sending a 6-month termination to MIFSM punishment. Start looking for another one. Medical examiner. We have 180-day out, so it'll take 6 years, or 6 months to get out, so. Unless you guys want to act on it right now, I'll make the motion.
oh, I just have a question to ask. Are they in violation of what the contract says they're gonna provide us or no?
There is, I'm not aware of any violation. The 180-day language is for any reason or no reason. They don't have to be in violation. The county has the option just to cancel it.
I think I understand.
I'll make a comment.
Yeah, I think,
So, yeah, that's one question I've asked him a number of different times, so, since we've had a lot of these issues, and then, of course, we're hearing a lot of stuff on social media, and I really appreciated the fact the CEO and the other doctor was here 2 weeks ago. But obviously, we need to do our due diligence. There's issues. So I would definitely like to look into the other options in the area. And just because we're under contract doesn't mean we can't have, say, the company to the north of us come down, talk to us, and give us an estimate, correct?
Well, procedurally, what I would suggest is this, if you want to proceed with that cancellation, that 180 days gives us ample time to put out an RFP and get proposals in here. And if you want to meet with those other providers, we can bring them in, you can interview them, talk to them about their proposals and work from there. But that's ample time for us to accomplish that within that 180 period. The only concern that I would have, and it's not a huge one, well, it would be, but by making that notice or sending notice to MIFSM that we're going to do this, there really is nothing to prevent them from just simply stopping service. And at that point, then obviously everything accelerates and we would probably skip the RFP process. We know who the vendors are. We just simply call them in, you can interview them and we can move that right along. So I'm confident we could overcome that, that scenario if it were to happen. But that's the only concern I would have. 180 days is ample time to get that accomplished and get a new vendor in here.
I agree with that, yep. So do we want to put it on for next week or if this is we can vote on it
Well-
tonight, or we can wait until next week to vote on it. I don't have any problems with giving a 180-day notice, none, believe me.
I'm ready to make a move.
I'll make a motion to go ahead and instruct our
Start the process.
administrator to send them 180-day notice and they're doing the RFP for a new one. Support.
You have support? I'll second.
He did. That's.
I got it.
Support is a second, yeah. You third.
I thirded it, yeah,
I'm for it.
okay. So we're all in agreement. Do we have to have roll call on this or can we just, I don't think we do, do we?
Yeah, I'm gonna
We'll do it.
on the
just
side
in
of
case.
concern because it is canceling and otherwise a
Roll
commitment.
call, please. We'll do.
Roger Mayhew.
Yes.
Charles Wiltie.
Yes,
Brenda Simmons.
Yes,
Craig Scott.
Yes, I would have thought a motion and 3 supports would been good enough. Appointment.
appointments. So this, do you have information on this, the Tom Spencer Information Technology Director, antivirus software?
He's right
There
on.
is some material on there. Tom is on the Zoom.
Hello.
Hello?
In your board packet today is information in regards to our antivirus software renewal. Back in 2018, when I started, I was looking at what we were paying per year for some of these software services that we use, that we're not going to get rid of. We're going to keep them for quite some time. And I reached out to the vendors and got multi-year agreements or multi-year quotes, I should say. And they were substantially cheaper to go with a 3-year price when you divided out the per year cost. And I put that in there for the historical cost in 2021, if you want to look at that. But our current quote is quite a bit higher, and it's a little bit different type of service too. Our antivirus software is hosted on our internal servers. And naturally, with a lot of things, we're moving to these cloud-based services, and that's exactly what our antivirus software wants to do. They don't want to go with anything longer than a 1 year for hosting it on our own servers anymore. So I asked them to provide a 1 year on-site, on-premise quote, and then a 3-year cloud-hosted quote. And you'll see that it's divided out per year is about $400 cheaper per year to go with the cloud-based solution, and that would be my recommendation.
Okay, do I have any questions on that?
No, I talked to Tom about it.
Did you?
yeah, I support Tom's opinion fully on this.
I will say, and I did put that at the bottom, I'll have the information for Tim, because I know we usually like to put the vendor in the resolution, but I'm not quite sure I'm set on going with this vendor yet. I still have actually quotes or requests out for quotes that I haven't heard back from. Somebody may come in cheaper. And the ironic part is that these people that I'm asking for quotes from work with the antivirus company to get quotes. And it blows my mind how some come in cheaper than others because they're all getting it from the same place. It's just a matter of their markup.
So you're okay with us just holding off on
I'll have to hold off till next week, at least,
Yeah.
till he gets more
a,
information.
good.
No, I don't need a motion tonight. I figured Tim will put this on for a resolution for
Yeah.
the next meeting.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
thank you. Okay. Okay, the sheriff's up enough to talk about the Stellar Communications addendum and the commissary addendum.
Hey, everyone.
Hi.
Oh, thank you, Paul.
Pay off one, pay off everything. Oh, no.
Under Sheriff's been working with Stellar, so we're gonna give that presentation.
Should all have in their iPads what Stellar sent as far as the new services that they're proposed to leave us with at the jail for operations. So what that entails is 2 phones and intake. So 1 in each, 2 of the 4 intake cells and intake. So that would be the only phone service that would be left, but that would enable us to be able to split male, females, or to have multiple people if they needed to make a phone call while they're in the intake process and the lockup before transfer. The other part that they're proposing is to leave the bond management system. So that's the program that runs that, and then some of the tools for depositing money and printing out checks associated with that. So that cost is, I believe is $1,000 is what's in there for those services to be left behind.
$1,000 a month, right?
$1,000 a month, yeah, for those services. Now, if you remember, they operated previously on commission from commissary and phone calls and all that type of stuff, so there were no service fees that were associated with it. They agreed for this $1,000 to leave us with these aspects. We will lose the kiosk at this point out in the lobby, which could be problematic, but nothing that couldn't be overcome with that particular aspect of it. But the bond management is important for managing cash, to have the ability to do credit card payments, that type of thing through the system. So I've reached out based on information provided from other sources to a competitor that may have similar type services to see if we're ballpark in this scenario. But right now, Stellar was the one that we were operating with prior to this conversion. So I present to you what Stellar is offered. We're scheduled to come in Tuesday night, and we're gonna work Wednesday for them to recover the equipment they're taking back, and then to get the stuff they're leaving behind up and running and get us trained to make sure we operate it.
On Tuesday, did you say?
They're coming in Tuesday night, but the work will be done Wednesday. So they're coming from a long distance away, probably doing it overnight. It's their tech person.
I have a couple questions.
Go ahead.
Okay, so currently the phones right now that are located in the lockbox rooms, they're not working then?
They're not operational at this time. That whole Stellar was shut down because of the transition with not having inmates there, not getting the revenue or the commission. So they shut that down starting October 1st, and that's what caused me to have to scramble and get this set up.
All the years, I imagine, them bringing that money in, and just like that, they wouldn't give us any float period or nothing.
When I talked to them on the phone, this would be one of the first accounts that they actually do this with. Because they operate with jails, all of them are set up. So the 2 co-owners, husband and wife, had to actually, from the conversation, sit down and have a conversation. Are we gonna do this, and what's it gonna look like? And then after that conversation, it was a couple weeks at least before I got it. It was 3 weeks in now.
Yeah.
Before I actually seen these proposed contracts, so.
Question for Tim, do we have any line items that we budgeted for these type of expenses?
Not for this one because it was strictly commission based, but there is a line item in the corrections budget that's for contracted services. And I've made a note to myself here, should you approve this, that get into the budget and make sure any adjustments that we need to make would be made. Now, we're early enough into the fiscal year. It's not an urgent item because there is funding actually in that line to do it. But we will have to keep an eye on that because there are other things that the jail does contract for. You know, so we want to make sure we don't short that, but it's a new expense.
What is that line item currently? What's the funding set for? And then while you look that up, so we're gonna be paying for an inmate to use a bond service. Is there a way that we could charge them to use that? I mean, why should we have to pay for that when they're the one that's looking to get the bond service?
We have not explored that option.
I wouldn't.
Passing on.
I mean, I'm just, I'm just brainstorming. I don't really see why our county residents should pay for them looking into a bond service. Right, because it would be, I mean, we're looking at $1,000 a month.
Correct. I don't know as far as passing along that cost, if there's something that maybe could be looked at. I've not explored that. This is strictly that they were commission-based to begin with. Now they're leaving expensive equipment behind. If there's an option to pass along some cost but again, just from protecting the money intake and having the availability of credit card, which we heard from the court system is an important aspect of having to legally provide them with an opportunity to do bond. These type of system needs to be established at some point to protect ourselves, the inmates, the courts, to comply with all the regulations, so.
So we could look into that. Plus, there's possibly, we might have another person maybe interested in bidding.
I reached out to them, when I reviewed the website, it looks like it's similar, but until I actually start
Yeah.
getting into it, is it apples to apples? Because their website talks about municipalities, doesn't touch directly on jails. So it looked like some of what they offered on the website kind of translated to what I've seen with Stellar. But we've always used Stellar because they've always provided such a awesome service for us over the years, and so in the interest of getting it back up and running as quickly as possible. Just the sheer protection of the cash flow when we do get cash. It goes into the system when it's locked down. There's only one person that's responsible for taking it over and doing deposits and all that type of stuff, so.
Okay.
Checks and balances, basically.
So one of the payments due at the end of the month, beginning of the month, what?
Well, as soon as we would sign it, I would assume that it'll be,
Okay,
we'd have to probably catch up the first month and then to see if it's the first of the month or end of the month, but. Again, it'd be prorated, I would assume, because we haven't used it from October 1st till whenever, so.
A proration would be the only
But-
thing that could justify it.
but it almost sounds like we'll pay the $1,000 a month if it's used or not used. Is my-
Right, the inmates will still be putting some money into to use the telephone, so that
Okay.
$1,000 is primarily for the bond stuff and.
Okay,
But you're not gonna have really a high volume of phone
No.
calls being made. It's just to provide that legal aspect that if they do have a phone call that needs to be done, we have the ability to do it without having to use a county landline and not being able to monitor and the other resources that go along with the system that I won't go into, but.
understand.
Tim, how much is that line? item?
We've got one line right now for contracted services, and that's at 440,000. That's primarily though for the housing of the inmates. So we'll probably have to open up another line, just a general contract like for Stellar, and make a budget amendment to deal with it.
Well, I thought you said we actually already had.
Well, I see that we were able to eliminate most of those. They mostly had to deal with inmate medical issues, like that inmate medical contract that we had. We do have budgeted right now 25,000 for inmate medical expenses, and that I think is a high number. Well, you'll never know until the end of the year when you've had your experience, but there's potential that we wouldn't use all of that, so some of that could be used for this. Like I said, right now, probably not the best time to do the budget amendment to deal with this. Keep it in the queue so that we know that it's sitting there, but it's way early in the budget year, and there may be other adjustments that we can make to make up for this. And keep in mind, we did budget for contingency for exactly this kind of thing, so there is funding on that line in the general 901 activity that will definitely be able to accommodate the expense.
question here is, on that second one is, will remain, still remain in full force throughout the agreement term unless the cancellation process from page 5, section A, cancellation of agreement is enacted. We know what that is. It's not explained. We don't have the full, this is just addendum, do we?
Well, the full contract.
Yeah, full
Yeah, I
contract.
would have to go back and get that. I guess I didn't see that.
It's just in case another company has got a
True.
better thing. I don't wanna be stuck here. We have to go a whole year or something.
Yeah, I can look up that previous contract and get it sent out,
Okay.
just so that verbiage is there.
I like the deal, but then again, there are other ones and don't know. Of course, maybe they just as soon if we ditch them. Cause this isn't the primo thing for them.
Correct. That's it. Again, when I talk to the co-owners, they just don't operate. They operate on that commission basis with all their accounts. So this is something outside of the norm for them.
I didn't expect them to even do it, really, to be honest with you.
I think they were capturing before.
Hmm?
What was the capture before on the commissary?
I don't, top of my head, I don't know what their commission was, and I know some of that, we talked about it when we had the telephone up and running. The county was getting some revenue that was being cycled
I
back.
gotta think it's gotta be at least 1% they were capturing or something.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I don't even want to speculate and
Okay.
not even be close.
Yeah.
Okay, as things move on with this stuff, like if there's any changes, you'll keep us advised,
Oh, yeah.
administrator advised. That's one, I appreciate you working this and working so hard on this to make sure we still have,
We just want accountability for that bond money.
right.
That's what we're really looking for.
Okay, thank you very much.
He's got that other.
I know I can.
Wondered if I could,
So,
okay. What I did is ask to be on the agenda, just open up a conversation regarding what promotions. And we had put together a list of the duties that were shared by the promotions. It's quite a list. It's quite detailed what has to happen in the work duties.
Oh, I thought I had more copies. but-
Well, you've all got it.
We've all got,
Yeah, we got it right on our iPad, so.
got it on our iPad.
Yeah, I
Brenda,
got it
it's
right.
on here too, Brenda, on the last page.
thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, got it.
Right now, the budget allows one sergeant, to be quite honest with you. These tasks, these duties, it's impossible for us to operate with one sergeant. What has to happen? It's a breakdown of the duties that is necessary for our office to run safely. And I was hoping that you would look them over, and we'll go over them one by one if we like.
Yeah, I'd like to go over. 'em.
I would like,
Yeah. Building operation, that's a tech administrator who verifies the lien. There's a lien audit every year that has to meet the credentials there. So that individual has to be responsible for that lien, make sure it's done correctly. We have to have lien testing training every year. So that has to make sure that in fact is done. Somebody needs to be responsible for that. Very important. If we don't do it right, that lien gets pulled out. And a police station cannot operate without lien.
who did that before? Who was previously doing
Doug
it?
Kesselman, Lieutenant
It was,
Kesselman. Then next, we got the abandoned vehicle, the TR-52s, them have to be done on all vehicles that are impounded in the tow services, so we can get them off the books. That's quite a process in itself that requires an administrator to make sure that happens.
Who did that before?
I believe Lieutenant
Lieutenant.
Gassman did that also. Patrol vehicles, have to make sure that they're maintained right, make sure the mileage is good, the oils are checked, you know, we want to make sure that, vehicles will last as long as they can. That was the responsibility of Lieutenant.
I have a question to ask.
Yes.
We're talking about, service maintenance, order outfit, new patrol and change oil. The drivers don't do that?
Well, we got the sticker on the windows. But we want to make sure that it's done. We check and do our double checks to make sure somebody has to be responsible for that because there may be 3 people that's running that car.
Mm-hmm.
And who's going to take the responsibility? We want to make sure that there's one person that's responsible for that task to get done. Because it's very important. If we don't change them oils, then vehicles are not going to last.
So the sheriff, the undersheriff can't look at that then?
With all our duties in ourselves, probably not. We wouldn't be effective. We wouldn't be efficient enough to do that, really.
So who did that before?
Lieutenant performed the functions. Again, your oil changes would go as a deputy would take it in and get it done, but this is the fleet management part of it to make sure they were being done. Scheduled needed repairs, if there was issues identified, it was their responsibility to make sure that
Getting
they
done.
were going to an appropriate place, it was being addressed. Then ultimately to consult with the sheriff with the budget to make sure that we were operating within those. So that was a lieutenant that primarily was responsible for fleet maintenance.
Castman.
So, I know you brought up before about, military and how you have supervisors and stuff, but military drivers took care of their vehicles and maintained it. Then it was
No, this
the
is,
drivers that were doing it.
this is just one task. Not only that, they double check, make sure it's outfitted with the right proper gear. I mean, we just want to make sure we have everything in there. We want to have one person to go to. Has that been done? Yes, it has been done. So we know it's been done. It's just checks and balances is all this stuff is to make sure that, we can provide the services to the.
Is that one person that's gonna be doing all this stuff?
You know, these are responsibilities are going to be spread out amongst
Spread out.
Amongst who?
the 3, the lieutenant and 2 sergeants.
Then we got the range schedules. AMCOs, we have to meet their standards.
And you already have a training officer now, right?
Correct.
Doesn't he do that?
Yeah, they're
Range
currently
stuff?
doing that right now, yes.
And they haven't hauled any. Your training officer did.
Sergeant is, yes. The sergeant is one of the ranger masters.
Right, but you got another training officer that has not been
Correct.
an management.
Has not been promoted, correct.
I mean, he's been a training officer for quite a while now.
As far as I know, yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, because I remember that approval.
Yeah, there's 2 that share that range because it's, you know, it's quite dangerously. We're shooting guns. We gotta make sure it's safe. Make sure there's 2 people on.
Because they're cops.
Range. Well, hey,
Shouldn't have any problem keeping it safe.
well, we want to make sure it's safe.
Yeah, how many deputies do you have? Boy, you have.
At 9?
The millage calls for 8. So you have 2 school resource officers that are under contract with each school district. You have a secondary road officer who does the state of Michigan secondary road enforcement that we're reimbursed for, and then the millage calls for 8 positions. So what you passed was 1 sergeant, 7 deputies. Even with the promotions with a lieutenant and 2 sergeants, they will still be responsible for road duties because we don't have 8 fully functioning staff or deputies or officers in that field. Their promotion is not going to change the fact that they're going to be answering calls for service. It's going to compensate them for picking up the slack of the 2 lieutenants that left.
I think for 9 deputies, I think 2 sergeants should be able to handle them. And should handle checking the vehicles and et cetera, et cetera. My personal opinion. But I mean, military is a little bit different, but you brought up the military. I mean, I had a company of 250 people and I had 12 people helping me with that. And if you've got 8 people and you need 3 people in command to handle that, I can't buy that.
Well, there's a lot of task goes with this. It's got to be right. you know, we gotta run this thing very professional and make sure we get it right for the safety of our people and the safety of our, our citizens.
Well, I hope all your deputies are professional. Not just the lieutenant and the two sergeants. Okay, go ahead.
Then we got the armory. You know, their task is to make sure that we've got the proper weapons, ammunition. They gotta be cleaned.
Doesn't everybody clean their own weapon?
We have the armors do that because they gotta tear them apart.
I know.
And you gotta go to armor school to do that.
Who was doing that this past year, Sheriff?
The military is a lot different than the civilian world.
Yeah, it's a lot. Well, it takes springs out. You gotta make sure
We do the same things.
springs are back in there. Well, that's,
It's part of the armor's job.
yeah.
Who was,
Range instructors also.
oh, that was the two range people.
Then you got the court runs, the paperwork with the prosecutor, you got swearing the warrants. Civil process returns to civil court. I mean, that's a responsibility, that's a daily responsibility that has to be done. Signing warrants, we do that all the time. The sergeant's done that all the time for years.
So that was Castleman and Stalden that did that?
The detective lieutenant was primarily responsible for court runs, supplemented if he wasn't there by the other lieutenant or myself.
UD-10s, that's a crash reports, that has to be done because it's gotta be sent to the state and there can't be any errors or anything like that, so that has to be checked, double checked to make sure that's done. So that's a responsibility of an administrator.
Was that Castleman currently as well?
That was the road lieutenant, correct?
Who's that?
Castleman who retired.
And then we had the body cams, which is a new one for all of us here within the last 3 years. They have to be reviewed. They gotta make sure that they're downloaded and make sure that's right, because that's evidence that's going to the prosecutor's office for whatever cases we've been working on. So that in itself is a big responsibility for our administration. You got K-9 duties. That's our K-9 officer. There is ongoing training with that. The dog has to be trained all the time and ongoing training. So that's another administration job.
So that's currently our lieutenant, right?
No, sorry. There is no lieutenant.
Sergeant. Officer and officer, deputy and officer.
Yeah.
That's not changing, right? He's gonna still be the K-9
No,
guy.
it is changing.
Oh, you're gonna make a new K-9 guy?
No, the scheduling. I thought you were referring to.
Oh, no, but I mean, he still has the K-9.
Yes,
right.
yes.
You'll continue that.
So the body cameras, Sheriff, who did that this past year?
That process is very lengthy. There's several aspects to it. There's compliance for the policy to ensure that they're complying with the policy. So that's a sporadic check, and that was handled by the road lieutenant. There's a use of force policy as far as body cameras, and that's the checks and balances that go through the lieutenant and myself, the undersheriff, to ensure compliance with use of force situations, and there's that type of thing. And then there's the court proceedings. The videos have to be forwarded to, and the deputies do that as part of their case review, but the checks and balances was the lieutenants to make sure that if a body camera didn't get included or there was some type of error, that the lieutenants would be the ones that would be shipping out. FOIA obviously is another big factor of that, and that's my arena that I maintain responsibility for the upper portion of the body camera management.
Then we got the approval of the payroll verifications of the day's work. That's checks and balances. And make sure that checks off with the daily logs that's being provided daily to our office.
Is that how you turn your time in?
UKG. Yeah, the same system that the county's using.
That was currently Capsman there.
Road lieutenant was the first verification.
Is that right?
Well, all the payroll has to be entered on UKG. What the component that isn't happening there is the punching in and out. They're entering that, and it's maybe something the undersheriff can explain. I think they enter that once a pay period, once a week.
We've got them entering it more often than that after some of our last experiences, so they're keeping up on it, but they're manually entering their hours based on their daily log. There is no time clock in corrections or the road. So we're still using the same systems, still using the same. And the checks and balances at the lieutenant is the first level in both houses, so correction and the road, they do the first level, and then it comes to me second level, which is then forwarded to payroll for final review and entry into the payroll system.
Who did you guys, who was doing scheduling?
Scheduling was the sergeant is being moved to another employee that would be one of the proposed sergeants.
The Capsman was doing scheduling for the road.
Sergeant Mossinger was
Also,
sergeant currently.
Then we got the reports that have to be verified. We look at the grammar, spelling, make sure all the details fit the crime. That has to be done on a timeline too, so that has to be checked internally with the administrator. So that's another task that's put on these administrators.
who was doing that?
That was split between both the detective lieutenant and the road lieutenant. The file class system was split, so your major case, your property crimes, assaults and whatnot were handled by the detective for follow-up. Your higher file classes, which are civils and crashes, were handled by the road lieutenant.
And this is another big one here is the property room, recording the evidence. Make runs to the crime lab, return the evidence to the owner whenever the case is closed, but that evidence has to be secured for the individual.
That used to be your job, wasn't it, before you were sheriff?
That was my job for years.
Yeah.
So that's quite a big one because you got to make sure that evidence is properly handled, because you could lose major cases because of that evidence, that collection of evidence and the way it's processed. So that is huge in itself. That has to continue that way.
So who was doing that?
Lieutenant.
Capsman?
Yeah, I did it for years. The system that we have now, I developed that myself. And then when I became sheriff, Lieutenant Castleman had taken that over. So that's a huge task in itself, and you got to stay on top of that. If you don't, you're gonna get way behind on it, and then all that property is gonna pile up on you. So
What was your rank when you took care of that stuff?
I was a deputy, and I volunteered to do all that because it was needed.
Okay,
The daily logs, it has to be checked, obviously, to make sure the time stamped is right. The patrol, task is done, the areas that are patrolled, just to monitor the work level of the individual that's patrolling out there. Just checks and balances. We have to have checks and balances to make sure that we're doing our job the way we should, and we expect to do our jobs.
Who was doing that?
Detective lieutenant is primarily responsible for review of the information to make sure that any reporting process that was on the log was completed to a satisfactory level, so that you need to make sure that it was completed and verified. And then as part of the payroll process, the road lieutenant will review daily logs to ensure what's entered in the payroll system for payroll.
So that right there in itself, it's quite a task to do, and you have to stay on top of it. And overseeing the deputies, to make sure that everything is done correctly. Your you're basically in charge of that, that particular rotation. So if anything comes through dispatch, you're gonna get the call. And then if it's something that's really, important enough to get a hold of myself or the undersheriff, that call would be passed on to us. But normally the road sergeants would get the initial call. And then they would, you know, weed that out to see where that can go. And they fill the gaps. They're responsible for filling the gaps, within their rotation.
That was currently stall encapsulation.
Yeah, that was pretty much everybody, all the command staff would make sure they'd fill the gaps to make sure that there nothing was not unattended. So everybody was responsible for their shift. Another big task that we're all tagged with is this lockup. I mean, there's, you know, our meetings, you know, we've had some hiccups and we're working our way through it, but I've been leaning on these three guys to make sure it's been happening. So I'm going to continue using these people to make sure that it's going to run smooth as we can. So, you know, there's a lot of health and safety involved, not only for our own people, but for the community as one. And these administrators are going to make sure that happens, that the safety, the health and safety of all people is going to be good. I just need to check some balances to do that. And I know the millage allows them positions to be filled with a fund balance of roughly $84,000 at the end of the fiscal year. So I know the money's there to fulfill these duties that are very, very important, you know, make our life a lot smoother. I mean, the undersheriff and our office would move forward with this happening. We cannot function with one sergeant with all them duties. We can't do it. We just cannot do it. That's like asking district court to function with one magistrate. They can't do it. I'm in the same boat. I have to have that administrators in place to make sure this stuff runs smooth. And then the people get the very best service that they can possibly get. That's what I'm looking at. So we've had these people in place for as long as I've been there.
You said the sergeants would take care of their shift. There is going to be one on A shift and one on B
Yes,
shift.
absolutely.
So there will be a sergeant on weekends.
Yes. Well, they'll be on call. If they're not working, they're going to be on.
Well, no, I mean right on that schedule, because my concern is then if we're not working the weekends, then it's five total command people. Yourself and Paul, the lieutenant, 2 sergeants, and then only 5 deputies. That reduces the number to 5. That doesn't create 8 deputies again. It takes it down to 5 deputies. And then 1 road patrol, right?
What's being proposed does not take away from their road duties.
No, what I'm saying though, is in order to get back to 24/7, we gotta have 8 guys on the rotation.
And they will be responsible.
Because I've asked this a number of times, can we have 1 deputy on during a day shift? And I've been told, no, we have to have 2 deputies on a day shift. So if that's the case, and I'm not saying you can't do that, all I'm saying is it takes 2 for the A shift for each and the B shift for days, and it'll take 2 deputies for the A shift and the B shift at night. If these guys don't work an A shift and a B shift, then we're not covering the weekends. And how are we ever going to get back to 24/7 if we don't cover the weekends?
The goal is to be back to 24/7, so that will be set up once we get staffed, and they will be responsible. But unfortunately, the level that we're funded at under the millage to having 8 bodies responsible for road duties. So you got the recruit that's coming out, so that would be that, and we have to fill the other 2 positions. We get those back up and running, We're running 24/7.
Well, that's,
However, that schedule is laid out.
well, it's laid out right now, A and B shift.
Correct.
A shift and a B shift during the day and an A shift and a B shift at night. I mean, this is
Correct.
your system. I mean, I'm not making a system. But how can you cover the weekends with 2 deputies on each shift if you're just doing it with a deputy count that you're talking after you promote?
Again, what you're saying is what? You
Well,
want
if
you want me to
you're-
tell you sergeants are gonna be 12-hour shifts? What are you saying?
Well,
It's gonna be covered 24/7 is what it is. Once we get back up to staff.
will it be,
Very
will
minimal.
it be 2 deputies and all 24/7 then?
As far, when we get fully staffed, I'll let you know where the sergeants land.
Oh,
Well, we're
Okay.
waiting for the one to get out of the academy. And
well, he's not a sergeant, but.
we got 3 more positions to fill, so we're.
Oh, I understand
We're reaching
that.
out there trying to get people here.
I understand that.
And, well, I said it before, it's just people don't want to be police officers anymore. We're having a hard time, so is everybody else.
And it's, you know, even with the promotions, they're gonna be responsible, just like the deputies, for answering calls for service, for backup, for being available for calling. It's not that they're gonna be sitting in the office doing administrative stuff like, unfortunately, myself, trying to keep all, but they're gonna take on.
Well, you volunteered for the job.
I know I volunteered. But they're taking.
I don't want to remind you of that.
Yeah, thanks. They're taking on these added responsibilities is the point,
And
that were handled primarily by the 2 lieutenants that were working previously.
Who didn't do road patrol? Who did not do road patrols? Am I correct?
They did for a period of time. They volunteered to go back to road patrol when we needed the field training officers. So they were on road patrol for almost a year
Yeah, about a year.
before we got up to
Just get-
full staffing before all the
Get staffed
layoffs.
up.
And then they came back to the office to catch up.
Yeah.
The problem is a lot of this stuff goes on the wayside when it gets busier with complaint. So your complaint review, your UD 10, that stuff gets backed up. Trying to get those things accomplished. And that's gonna be the challenge they're gonna have to face with this new situation that we're currently in with lower staffing and having road responsibilities on top. That's what we saw with the 2 lieutenants when they were doing the field training officer. They would have to come back and spend administrative hours trying to catch up on case review and log review, doing that type of administrative stuff that has to be done to protect us, to protect the people doing the job.
Yeah.
And yet, these people are gonna be doing the road just like those lieutenants did. So we're gonna have to reinvent the wheel to make sure that we're accomplishing the goals that have to be done.
And these deputies work out of the sheriff's department, right? These road patrol deputies.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
My next question is, and don't take offense to this, but what does the sheriff and undersheriff do?
A lot,
Well, tell me.
a lot.
A lot tells me nothing.
Well, my job is to make sure all operations are working, right?
Isn't that what you have all these lieutenants and stuff for?
Well, checks and balances, that's what I'm saying.
The undersheriff is responsible for budget management, FOIA, for doing the reporting to states for the different grants, for the secondary road, for compliance with Department of Justice, various reportings that go on with that, grant review, and overall supervision. And that's just the start of it. And you know, with budgets and managing budgets and managing personnel, complaints that come in ultimately land on my desk or his desk. And I do take complaints. I take lobby complaints.
I do too.
So they come into the lobby instead of calling somebody off the road. I have investigations that I pick up. I'm not one of the sergeants that sits at the desk and calls in a road officer to take stuff. I've taken handfuls of complaints over the last 3 years. Working on one right now, it's got a binder about this big, and I fit that into my spare time. So there's a lot of things that go on administratively just to keep them on the road to answer the calls for service for if and when the people need help.
Yeah, it's pretty busy, you know. How does the sheriff do?
Well, I'm there all the time for the people that come into the lobby all the time wanting to talk to me, constantly talking to
I'm
people.
glad you brought that up.
And I also handle complaints that walk in. I won't pull a road deputy off to handle a complaint that I can handle when it's in the lobby.
But my understanding, there's been a request for you to come to township hall meetings in fact, I had a call today that you're always available. The sheriff says he's always available. And their complaint is that you're not.
Well, who's they, for number one? And nobody's asked me to be at a township hall meeting.
Really?
Who asked me?
Edwards Township Hall didn't ask you to come to a meeting and talk about road patrol?
I've never been asked.
Never been asked.
Can I make a couple comments?
Sure.
So obviously as on the law enforcement committee and former background in law enforcement, I've made it very clear I am completely committed to trying to ensure that our county residents are as safe as possible. I've also been very steady saying that I feel we need as many qualified road deputies as our county can afford to be on our roads as absolute often as they can be. And I know we have that 24/7, and I know that we're trying to get back to that. I think the board has supported that. There's been some talk about possibly pulling some millage money. I don't agree with that. We have one person in academy. You know, if we could get 2 more people in academy, qualified individuals, I believe we would support that. So I don't think it's a matter of us not wanting to support the sheriff department. You know, I've actually had 2 different people in the last week come to me and accuse us commissioners as defunding the police, which is absolutely completely false. I mean, that is the last thing that we want to do. And again, I want to see our county as safe as it possibly can be. We are a small county. We have just over, 20,000 residents in the county. In the summertime, we get busier, but we need to have the best possible deputies on the road as often as we can. And what concerns me right now is the fact that we are 3 deputies short. And then I understand that you guys are asking for upper management. We need to have management to be able to do these different positions. But one item that I feel very important, that if we are going to move forward with this, in my eyes, on the weekends, the weekends, especially here in Ogemaw County, I mean, we know what the weekends brings. It brings in a lot more people into the county. And I really would like to have assurances to know that not only do we have one of these, it'd be 5 command officers that would be currently in position here for the county. I want to know that we have a command officer working, dressed, and on the roads at all time when we're fully staffed. But you guys are saying you can't really tell us right now if we would move forward with this and we would get to that position where we would have 5 command officers. Can you guys guarantee that we will have a command officer dressed and on the road at all times?
They're gonna be available. We gotta get there. We gotta get the bodies hired. And that's very difficult to find the right qualified people, but I'm glad you brought up about 2 more to the academy, because that was my intentions, to try to go through what we got for applications and try to get them in there in January. I mean, that's my goal. We've got to get people on the road.
Do we have some applications right now?
Yeah, I've got some we need to go through. We'll see where that goes. Not all the applications are the best qualified people. But we do have them there. So we're in the mix of, trying to weed out, see what we got. So, I would be very thankful if I had the support to send them to the academy in January.
Well, I think you got it right now. I don't
Yeah.
think
I'm
there's a
100%
commissioner here that'll say, no, we push We wanted to do those two before we even knew that we have Colts or
And it's,
Michigan Works. I mean,
it's too bad
yeah,
that the one,
get 'em up.
the ones
Let's
had to
go.
drop out.
Well, yeah, it's
But,
not our fault.
I mean, that's why we have the academies, just to.
My question is this, if we pick up the bill, that bill is ours then, so he dropped out, so that was just money gone on that guy, right?
I don't
Because he
know, we
dropped
had
out?
money invested in it.
No, we didn't have anything invested.
Okay, I'm just asking.
No.
I still haven't got an answer from M. Coles exactly how that's gonna play out. I know we've been in conversation with Delta, but they sent me an encrypted email and I can't get into the encryption and it's
I hate
a
those.
fiasco. But, so I'm still working with Delta, as far as the M. Coles money that was set aside for him. But we have received that M. Coles money. So now what I'm trying to ascertain is, right, do I have to send it back? You know, what happens with that part of the M. Coles money? And there's gonna be a charge from Delta to some level because he started and there's a whole resignation process that when I'm waiting to see this email that was encrypted and blew up in my email.
So one more question. So Paul, you made the statement, when Commissioner Scott asked, well, will these command officers just be in the office? You said they'll be doing some of these duties as you guys had laid out to us here, which we appreciate this information. Can you give a rough idea of what these command officers percentage wise from on the road to in the office, what we're looking at?
It will vary on any given day, depending on calls for service. I mean, if you have one deputy or two deputies out on the road and it starts getting busy, these command officers are gonna go out and support them, or they're gonna be filling an actual shift themselves as one of the primary people on there. So then they're gonna be having to make time to rotate through to make sure they're getting their administrative duties. But in the current configuration, because we only have 8 deputies when we're fully staffed, they're gonna have a lot of road responsibilities that they're gonna have to do. There'll be some days, you know, Tuesday maybe, if we have slower type activity where they come back and try to catch up on these administrative duties. But they're also have the CAD system up on their computer and when calls go out, 2 of them have been on mental transports the last 2 days. They picked up the slack, so the other deputies didn't have to, and they've been to a couple different mental hospitals with mental transports.
We don't have to pull from the road, we continue leaving them road guys out there, so there's just a lot.
I have one question. So you're gonna have 5 in command? Is that what you're asking for? 5 in command?
You have a lieutenant, 2 sergeants, an under sheriff and sheriff, correct?
Okay, 5. And that but that doesn't include the 8 deputies, right?
There won't be 8 deputies if there's
It'd be 5 and 5, 6, 7, so it'd be 3 deputies underneath in the millage. And then your 2 school resource officers and the secondary road who also works the road. So you'll have 4 deputies working road patrol functions. The 4th one will be doing secondary road enforcement primarily, but they're out there for backup complaint investigation along with the secondary road enforcement.
It just seems to me, personally, that you're pretty top heavy for taking care of 3 deputies that are gonna be for road patrol. I just can't fathom that. I have never seen anything like that before, where it takes 5 people on command and there's be 3 others out on the road doing road patrol. I just, it does not make sense to me.
You're hung up that these individuals aren't gonna be doing road patrol functions. Because of the way the millage is set up, they're gonna be doing road patrol functions. What they're being compensated for with rank and through that is for the added duties that were being done by the other lieutenants that they're gonna have to pick up and stay on top of. So just because you have a sergeant, 7 deputies, it's not gonna change the amount of road coverage that you're gonna get with a lieutenant, 2 sergeants and the rest deputies. They're still gonna have to function within what we have. Because the millage doesn't pay for anymore. We talk about, I mean, the millage pays for the road patrol.
Yes, it does.
You're not gonna get better coverage having a sergeant and 7 deputies. That's not gonna change anything. What you might get is a lot of administrative headaches that we don't get things done that need to be done. And then that falls on whose shoulders? Mine.
There you go.
Yeah.
So,
In the meantime, I'm waiting for Howard to come back while we make this transition. So,
The bottom line, we're hoping you'd make a resolution tonight and support us what we need. We honestly just cannot function with one sergeant now. This situation, we can't do it.
I thought you had two sergeants.
No, they currently have one sergeant.
So anyway, that's what we're asking for. We're hoping for your support so we can work together and move forward and give our people the very best of what they deserve,
You really mean that, working together?
100%.
Because I haven't seen it.
I don't know what to tell you, Brenda. Because I've always been trying to work together for 4 years here.
Well. We commissioners are the first ones that get stuck. I mean, we're the first ones they call. They don't call the sheriff. They don't call well, they would call the register because that's property, but they don't call the sheriff. They call us.
What do you tell them? Call the sheriff?
Well, that's how I find out that you've got on-call road patrol. Wouldn't have been for the people, I wouldn't have known it. That's how I also found out about the dog bite. Otherwise, I'd have never known it. I don't call that working together. You're hanging us out on a limb. The county's responsible. And we're the ones that's gonna get sued.
I'm not gonna sit here and get scolded by you, okay?
That's fine.
I'm asking for a resolution that I can give the very best service for the people out there.
And I understand what you're asking for. But you're not working with us. You just want. But you don't work with us. You leave us out there to hang out on a limb. And then people challenge us with that stuff, and we don't know a thing about it. That's my concern.
Can I make a comment, Brenda?
Go ahead.
And obviously the undersheriff and the sheriff, you guys both know that there's been some challenges on some of the communication and we wish there could have been more. But we know that we got to move forward. We know right now there's a lot of challenges with the direction the county's gone with the jail getting turned into a lockup. I'm very happy to see the hard work that both of you guys are putting into this and realizing that sadly, this is where we're at right now and we need to optimize and do the best possible thing we can right now. And that's to try to get this system in place, try to make it run as best as it can. And you guys have been working very hard at that. And I greatly appreciate that. The communication has been there. We've also gotten consistent with our meetings and we're going to continue that. So I really do appreciate the fact that since we've started this transition, I've seen commitment from you guys. Paul's communication, obviously, when it comes to the emails to all of our stakeholders has been huge for us. We hear all the stakeholders continuously thanking Paul for that because it is so important right now that we have that. So I am seeing some good communication as we move forward right now, and I definitely do appreciate it.
It'll continue to.
I understand what you're saying, and I see it here. I've never seen it before. You know, I think you've done a great job with keeping us informed of what's going on, how many people in the jail, how many people in Asco County before. I have not seen detail like that before. I like to see it. I could go down every day and see where they are. But I should still have a problem with that many in command group, and you've got 3 deputies and 5 commanders. I guess it's different in the civilian world than it is the military world. That's all I gotta say.
in the civilian world, when you pick up additional job duties and job performance, do you get compensated for it?
Do I?
Yeah.
No.
So at a restaurant or something like that, when you come up to be shift manager, you don't get compensation, you don't get I just keep giving you more and more duties and.
Yeah, but I'm not
expect you
gonna have 5 people in charge of 3 waitresses.
They're in charge of themselves and the people below them. And they're getting paid for what they deserve. And still doing road patrol.
Is it possible to make that resolution tonight?
Well, it wasn't on the agenda for a resolution.
You got enough board members that you can make it happen tonight. So I can move forward. I need to move forward here.
Well, I'd be willing to make the resolution. Just asking again, Sheriff and Under Sheriff, these are some very critical times for us here. And we have to be.
That's why we need to work together.
We have to be a team. You know, there's no reason for us to look back, and as long as the past, and as we move forward, we can work together. But again, our county needs to have the best deputies on the road
100%. That's why they put me in charge.
as often as they can. And the only thing that concerns me is I would be very, very upset if I would find out that 5 command is working from 8 in the morning till 5 at night. And weekends has no command and night has no command. That would highly disappoint me, and that would not be right to our residents of this county. And if you guys can assure the fact that these command officers are going to be spending a significant amount of time on the road, some of these items I think can be done from the road with the technology that we have now. It's just, we need as many deputies on the road as we can to protect our county residents.
We gotta have responsibilities.
We can afford.
We've got to make sure that them tasks are done. I mean, we're responsible for that to happen. And I've got to put people in place to make sure that happens and make sure they get compensated for that task that they're doing. They're gonna dig in hard if in fact they're getting paid to do it. Nobody wants to do anything for nothing this day and age, so. I'm asking for support so I can move forward and rolling on things that need to be done.
I could make a suggestion for you. The sheriff's right. I mean, you could vote like right now to do whatever you'd like to do, but that's not our pattern. We were disrupted with a non-quorum issue last week, and so we had a number of things we actually acted on tonight that we normally
Claims had
wouldn't
to be
have.
done.
What I would suggest is that allow me to put together the resolution, so you'll have it for the packet for next week. We'll spell everything out, and what's been presented on the finances tonight is absolutely correct. The funds are there that if you want to do it, you can do it. But you can then, you'll have those on the iPads by Tuesday. If you have some stipulations you want to put in there about scheduling or whatever, I mean, there'll be the opportunity to do that. But I just think everybody would regret making a knee-jerk decision tonight. Might work out. That's where we end up next week. But give yourselves the week to really mull this over, make sure that everybody's parameters are addressed, and vote next week. I think just for the benefit of the organization that, and I appreciate the sheriff's urgency, but I think that 1 week period would allow everybody to digest what you've got in front of you and ask any other questions you have, and then make your decision next week.
I think Jenny should be involved.
Yep. But I'm looking at, those people that you had in command were not on a regular schedule for road patrol. They were not on a regular schedule for road patrol, were they? Someone's sick, maybe they took care of somebody.
That's why we're changing things up.
But
Our command staff will be on the road. They will be out there taking complaints.
so why weren't they on the road before?
We had a lot more people on the road. We were at full staff.
You were? And why are you telling me you were short?
A year ago, we were at full staff. We were at full staff there. We were at full staff in the jail a year ago. We had night patrol. And then came the layoffs. And I'm suffering from the layoffs right now.
So if you were a full staff and you're allowed to have 8, you said 8 positions. Were those people that were in the command, part of those 8 that was on a schedule to do
There
road
were
patrol?
8 back when we were fully staffed.
Pardon me?
They were not 8 when we were fully staffed. you had two lieutenants that were in 301 general fund. They were the administrative command. One of the lieutenants got moved into the millage, which led to the layoffs.
That's right. That was our hit.
Right, and now the current configuration brings us down to 8. They were not 8 back in 23 when we were fully staffed. I'm not gonna guess off the top of my head, but it was more than 8. But we were fully staffed in both houses and we had reserves to account for attrition.
Okay.
So like, we're not talking the same type of numbers even. The current millage configurations is bare bones for 24/7 operation. Talk about liability, protecting the county. We're at great risk right now between the road and the jail configuration. But we'll address it. We'll figure it out.
Thank you.
DHHS.
Well. You got other plans.
We have Jeff Nichols on next.
We can, there's nobody from DHS here.
Whenever you want.
I'm saying, yeah, they're not
Okay.
here.
Okay,
Let's get the people that are here.
okay. Is Jeff on,
Yes.
are you on board there, Jeff? I see your name. You must be on mute.
He is.
Give Tom a second to let him in.
I don't know how to unmute him either, so.
Tom will do it.
Okay.
There he is.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Yep. So, I kind of figured out that, you weren't going to have a meeting before our next Veterans of the Year dinner, which is on the 11th of November. Of course, before you have the resolution for, Richard Ladd, an Army veteran who was, nominated and voted on as our 2024 Veteran of the Year. So I needed to get this to you before November 11th, and I don't think your committee meets in November for it.
No, we meet next week.
We would.
That's why I
we
asked
would-
him to put it on for this
Before
one.
November, Jeff, before November 11th, we would meet.
Yeah, you have a
we-
cow meeting.
Yeah, but I think for what he's talking about, this is just a nod, a blessing. I mean, it's no expenditure of money we're
Correct.
talking.
No,
This is just.
Correct.
This is just give them the blessing, however they do that.
So we can.
if they have a resolution, and the resolution's on here to have Richard Allen Ladd as Ogemaw County Veteran of the Year. I don't have a problem with that.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Go ahead and do it, Jeff.
Sounds like a winner. Thank you.
Blessing.
Tim,
There you go.
we do, is there anything else that we need to do to make that more official?
Yeah, we probably should have a motion for that. I'll make a motion to
We
make,
can hit the official thing next week.
Yeah.
okay,
It's still before the 11th.
Somebody need-
On next
okay,
week.
Yep.
it is, yeah. For next week, well,
Thank you, Jeff.
it's a deal.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Tony,
Don't
they,
forget, you're all invited.
Okay,
November
thank you.
11th, 11 o'clock at the Forwards Conference Center.
11.
11 o'clock. You got it.
Thank you, Jeff.
Tony, come on up. Bring your battle there with you.
forwards.
How's everyone doing today?
We're doing good, just as good as we were this morning.
We already have one of
Nice to
these
see you
earlier.
again, Tom.
Just pass them off to people.
Well, we already had these.
Oh, this is on our,
In our
It's on our-
packet already.
It is.
Thank you. All right, well, I just wanted to be prepared.
you are.
So I'm here today to talk to you guys, about our failed transit millage and an option that I see is, a possible route that the transit can take in order to save money and or utilize the money we would save, from suspending our Saturday services for the next 2 years until the millage is put back on a ballot. This is something that I've been kind of dealing with ever since, I do believe August. Myself and Ray have pondered and thought about different ways, but I do believe this is probably the best route that we could take as a transit. My overall goal right now is to improve the transit facility, improve the staffing, get adequate training, and all sorts of things just to improve the transit for the community itself. And I think this is just going to be a great way to take that next step in order to do so. So that's essentially what I'm asking, is just an approval or your guys' support in order for me to suspend Saturday services for the next 2 years. That way we can get this thing going.
So I make a comment, please. Thank you guys for being here tonight. So we had our meeting this morning, for transit meeting. This was brought up last month, I know, and I wasn't here, but I had a little bit of time to think about it because I did hear about it. So at our meeting today, just so you guys know, because obviously our committee, we have a very strong committee, and obviously we take what our opinion is and then we bring it to the board. Brenda's, on that. I'm the chair. So we had today 2 committee members in attendance that felt that this was the absolute way to go. It didn't seem like they really had any questions on it. We had 2 committee members that weren't in attendance. And then myself, yeah, I'm very disappointed with the fact that transit millage did not pass. One of my big goals when we first started the committee, because talking with especially my constituents in Mills Township, I had a number of constituents, and these are senior citizens, some people that just do not have the means to have a vehicle. And they were very concerned that the fact that the Saturday service wasn't there. The Saturday service had ended during COVID, correct, Ray?
Yes.
So that was one thing that I immediately, asked for, is if when we got staff full enough, can we look into the options of Saturday service? And we pushed hard for it for a while, Ray, didn't we? And we just couldn't. I mean, we followed your direction, and we finally got to the point where Ray said, I feel comfortable that we can do this. And Saturday service, started. Obviously by looking at the numbers, Saturday's numbers are substantially lower than Monday through Friday. But my big concern is that the people that do ride on Saturday, it's very important for them. These people, again, are people that don't have a car, senior citizens that just don't drive anymore. And I'm really concerned about our residents not having that service anymore. Yet also the other side of this, I understand where Tony and Ray are coming with this, because we have to always keep in mind the financial stability / sustainability of all of our entities. So I understand why this is in front of me, but I am really concerned of the fact of Saturday service no longer being in place. I did ask Tony today if he could break down some more numbers specifically for some of the items that he would like to bring to the service, which I agree with. We need to have a little more command there. Basically up to the time Tony came on board, Ray pretty much did everything. He ran all operations, which a director should oversee all operations, but you do have to have some command depending upon the size of the entity to help progress, your business. So we do need to have some more command, but I asked Tony if he could put together what he was looking for, what cost that would be. We do have over $1 million in the fund balance. I just don't want to see us feel like we need to jump on this and make this resolution next week to get rid of the Saturday service. I'd like to see these numbers from Tony. I understand again the concerns that we have with no longer having the revenue from the millage. But I would just ask you guys if we could get this information from Tony, find out a little more what he's asking for command. He does have a lot of great insight on what we need to do to build the transit the way it needs to be built. And that is going to cost money. It is going to cost some more people to be promoted. So I would just like to see that before we make any real haste decision of just all of a sudden getting rid of our Saturday service. Again, we do have $1 million fund, over $1 million fund balance. yes, we did lose 5.5%, 6% of state funding this year, so we have that going against us as well. So again, I completely understand what you guys, your concerns, but I would like to see that information before we make this big decision.
I'm coming. Tony has basically put it right out here, the monies and everything right on this, what he's presented us to, this response and option for failed transit millage. And you keep talking about the fund balance they have right now. Yes, they do have fund balance right now, but that could disappear in a flash. And he's got it right out here. So he's put it out here, been very proactive. He's got the figures right here. If you keep Saturday service, and we have a large fund balance right now, but if we don't be proactive right now, later on, it may be too late. And we'll lose more than just Saturday service. We'll lose routes on weekdays also. I'm for this right now, being a transportation officer myself and a logistician. I highly recommend that we just take off the Saturday service. Was not on there for a long time, and he's got it all explained out here in dollars and cents. And I'm not willing to take the chance of having that fund balance being used up. And then all of a sudden, we're naked and we have nothing. I'm just not willing to take that chance. I'd rather give him 5 days a week than nothing. Like I said, he's being proactive. He was a transporter and he was a logistician.
If I could make a comment, with our fund balance, if we would lose our state and federal funding, we don't even have enough money to run 1 year. That's how critical the fund balance is to the transits.
Yep.
When was the last time we lost state or federal funding?
It just continues to drop. It's not that we would lose it. But federal, it's happened where we haven't gotten any for a year. And there's no way to know that or control that. It's just an observation.
As being a transporter, I would say you need to be ready for any surprises that may come up. And if you use up your fund balances, surprises come up and you're just tough out of luck.
Yeah.
You're just tough out of luck. It's done. So you can keep your little Saturday service for those few people. And I think they deserve it. I really do. But it's not a service issue right now. It's a financial issue right now. And I'm not willing to gamble that away for a few people on a Saturday service. And I'm not willing to spend that fund balance because you don't know what's coming ahead of us. You don't know what's coming ahead of us next year. And we don't have any millage next year either. No, I'm not willing to take it and spend it. I am not. I'd rather be safe than sorry. Because sorry is not a good deal.
It's a decision that I've pondered a lot, and I understand that, this is going to affect the individuals that utilize our Saturday service. But I think just to, Brenda's point of looking ahead, looking at the future, we don't know what costs we might incur over the years. We don't know what the price of gas is going to be. We don't know, how many people we're going to have on deck or whatever the case might be. This is just a small portion or a small step that I feel is necessary to look out for the transit and the success of the transit in the future. That is the reason why this is being brought up.
Tony, this is your recommendation.
This is what I believe is a right step for the transit.
And the rest of the transit board, did you take a consensus?
Well, that's what I said at the beginning of my talk. There's 2 of them that weren't able to be in attendance. They both called and weren't able to be there.
Okay.
Myself had some questions. And then 2 others were very adamant to the fact that we should get rid of the Saturday service.
Okay.
Then we had a quorum there, then I think that's where you should go. Like I said, I'd rather save it. I've been in transportation, I've been in logistics. And that's where he came from. And he's being very proactive and I'm really happy to see what he's doing.
That's where I'm seeing it too. I gotta say, I know you've studied it and a little bit of the safe now, sorry, then sorry. Because if you do push off and keep spending, the cuts will be deeper later.
That's right.
You know, I go along with that. Nobody likes to give up service, but when the money isn't there, the money isn't there. That's all there is to it. And, I don't know what'll happen with state and federal funding. I don't know. That's always a crapshoot. But yeah, I think you're playing it safe here and maintaining a 5-day-a-week service. So, and you'll have a much farther learning curve yet, so. Maybe you'll see something in the daytime in that 5-day period where it can save you can find savings and then bring back maybe just a Saturday service rather than both days or something like that.
Right.
Or pay for another way, but I think you're on the right track. I really do.
And I just wanted to drive home that, this isn't an indefinite position. This is a suspended position until,
Yes.
if we are able to get a millage in 2 years.
Right.
Or if we can save to where we can operate comfortably with the Saturday service. So again, this is not indefinite. This is a
Well,
suspended.
right. And we'll still be at the mercy of the voter in 2 years.
Exactly.
So. Are we gonna just wait then we'll just wait until next week and bring this up for resolution?
Yeah, we'd like to have that in a resolution next week, but I think it's a good move. I'm glad you're being real proactive, but I didn't expect any less.
Thank both of you guys for coming in and being patient.
Thank you.
I just got college tonight. That's all I got to look forward to.
Huh?
I just got college to do tonight, so that's all I got to look forward to.
Oh, aren't you lucky?
College?
College?
I'm getting a degree in transportation and management, so
Oh,
Who are you?
it's gonna be a long night, but we're getting there.
Yeah,
great.
Well, I
Thank you.
appreciate.
it'll be worth it in
everyone's
the end,
time.
believe me, it'll be worth it in the end.
Thank you.
Thank you all. See ya.
Okay. Denise Simmons, are you on board?
She's not. She had a conflict tonight, but I can address this.
Okay.
And I've been back and forth on this for a few days. It's actually a 2-issue item. The first one, she has had a resignation in the department, and our appropriations resolution, she's wanting to come to you to affirm that that position can be filled. I can tell you that if it is not filled, that office will be crippled. There's no question about it. The second component to this is she obviously wants to begin recruiting immediately and asked that a job description be prepared so that she could hand that out to all of the applicants. So that's what you see in front of you. This has been through several edits. We think we've caught all the spellings and things as well. But this is one more position that we can check off now, saying once you've approved it, it has a job description ready to go. It's on file. And that really, the job description is the only thing that we would need to have brought forward, assuming agreement on filling the position.
Well, this was, all of a sudden, boom, we had no idea coming type thing.
There's been some anticipation, and the end date for the employee, I believe it goes through the end of the year, but there'll be some vacation worked into that. But we're in a good spot, or Denise at least is in a good spot right now. As far as timing to get this advertised, get the recruiting done, get the interviews done, and have somebody in play in time before she actually loses the person.
This is a retirement.
Yes.
So it's not like they've gone and found another job and they gotta leave in 2 weeks.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
she's retiring.
She's retiring.
Okay.
So
They could be
end
like
of the
the end
year,
of the calendar year.
very good.
Gotcha.
Yes,
calendar
I mean,
year.
that's the official end, but like I said, there'll be some
Okay.
vacation spent in between
Understand.
now and then.
Yeah, I'm all in favor of giving my blessing toward it.
Me too. So do we make it a resolution next year? Do we have to make it whatever?
Yep, we will put it on for next
Okay.
week.
Well, we've always been able to give the blessing.
Oh, yeah.
Calvin.
I mean, you wouldn't need to approve the job description if you weren't gonna do that, so I just
Right.
assume.
We can approve the job description next week.
Right.
But as far as
Okay,
looking for somebody,
right.
Good night.
Okay,
okay, so back to DHHS.
post the job. Okay.
Back to DHHS.
What this is, each year, if there are funds left over that are budgeted to DHHS, they ask that those funds be allocated toward their critical needs fund, which takes care of, as it says, critical needs in the community. We maintain about a $5,000 allocation to DHHS each year. I put that in the category of let's say required funding, but it's a maintenance of effort funding that all counties have to do with their DHHS boards. Commissioner Wiltsey's on this board. This is something that's happened, I believe, 3 of the 4 years I've been here. When there's funds left over, rather than turning those back to the county, they ask that you allow them to be put into that critical needs fund. And this year they're asking for a total of $2,704.50.
I'll be right back. I'm all in favor of that.
Okay. I am too. How much money was that again? I'm sorry.
$2,704.50.
So we need a resolution for that next week too.
Right.
Let's put it on there. What's this PA 152 hard cap?
Well, each year since 2011, counties have had to decide if they're going to use hard cap, 80/20, or an exemption when it comes to employee contribution to the health insurance. Prior to 2011, counties could do whatever they wanted to do, but there was a move in 2011 to curb some of those costs coming out of public dollars, and we ended up with PA 152. We have one contract right now that says that we're going to use the hard cap option as opposed to any of the others. And frankly, that's what we've done, at least since I've been here, is use the hard cap. We've had our Health Care Coalition meet, and that's the group of MESA, which is most of our employees. We've met here over the last few weeks going over this, and the insurance rates themselves went up 17.5%. That's actually good news because a number of counties have gone up between 30 and 50%. In fact, we have a neighboring county that went up 50%. So 17.5 doesn't seem so bad. But that is, particularly in our case, with our employees not receiving pay increases in this fiscal year, any increase in health insurance is money out of their paycheck. So what this Healthcare Coalition did was got together and looked at the plans that we offer, met with our MESA representative, went over our experience, and they've shuffled the decks a little bit to make these plans more affordable. So what we've put together are 5 plans still that employees will have to choose from. We did eliminate one lower end plan that was available last year because virtually nobody took the plan. So rather than continue that, they looked at literally it's about 8 pages, single space of different options, different ways to configure the health insurance, and came up with a plan that is not as expensive for our employees. There's still a little bit of an increase, but not near as much as the 17.5%. One of those issues had to do with prescription drugs. MESA came up with a formula this year, what they're calling their 5-tier plan. And I don't necessarily understand the difference between a preferred generic and a non-preferred generic, but there are different classifications to work with. But what makes that work well for us is one of those options is the prescription drugs is a mail order mandate for anything that's beyond a 30-day fill. And that will reduce not only the cost of the expense of the drug for the employee, but lowers the rate that we have to pay. So things like that the group did to the plan itself to reduce that cost. If we were to just go with the 80/20 model, meaning employees pay 20% of that out of their pocket, the increases would be huge. Fact is, with the hard cap that was set by the state, several of our plans still come in below that hard cap. So we are still stable. This is not going to affect the general fund one way or another because we chose that hard cap model. So overall, I think this is the best choice. I certainly support it. And this is a resolution that we're compelled to pass every year prior to the renewal, which in our case is January 1. But PA 152 says we have to do this each year. You have to be on record by resolution choosing either hard cap 80/20 or an outright exemption, which honestly, you probably would have a tough time justifying at this stage. So what this resolution does, it just continues that hard cap. Hopefully you'll be agreeable to putting that on next week.
Go ahead and put it on next week, but
A few years,
We can discuss it next week.
Absolutely.
a few years ago, with the budget constraints and things, we passed an 80-20 resolution. But then in negotiations, there was different concessions made back and forth, and we went back to the hard cap, and we've been at hard cap every year I've been here, so. I'm all in favor of it. I mean, it's like Tim says, it doesn't affect our general budget at all.
I go for the hard cap.
I will provide two, just as an information item in next week's folder, the rate sheet that we developed too, based on the new rates. So you can see where the increases are, but you can also see there's just a very brief explanation of what each of the 5 plans are. But you'll also be able to see on that chart just which plans are still able to contribute to an HSA. We do that because those plans come in under the hard cap. We're committing to the hard cap amount, and the employee, we like to say, as far as the formula works, if you're young and healthy, those lower end plans are really going to work well for you. And, you know, by coming in that far into the hard cap, the HSA provides them a little bit of extra protection as well in case they do get sick.
I have a question, and it's just stuff you hear through the grapevine. My understanding is that these 5 plans are not, don't give as much coverage as the other plans used to give. Is that correct? Their deductibles are higher and they got more out of pocket and blah, blah, blah.
Well, depending on which one you pick, you can get one that's higher out of pocket, higher deductibles. I'll say this, for my first year here, we had one of the off-the-shelf plans because we weren't part of a pool. They told us this is the plan you get. We were paying hundreds of dollars out of each check for that plan, and it was not near as good a coverage as what these Mesa plans offer. What we're offering the employees, but the choice is if you're an employee who still would like the higher end plan, you can choose that plan. You're going to have to pay a little bit for it, but you can still have that plan. It's the employee, particularly, as I said, the young, healthy group that doesn't need to pay for that much. You know, when you get into my demographic, it becomes important that certain things are lined up and ready to go for you. When you're younger, you're healthier, you're more active, you don't have to go to the hospital. You don't have to go for a number of medical checkups. You're not necessarily on any kind of a health maintenance prescription.
Will we get to be able to see before next meeting, will we be able to get to see what those plans are like deductibles and stuff?
Right, that's what I'm gonna provide you as the supplement. You'll see the rates, you'll see what the co-pays and deductibles are. There's one plan with co-insurance. I'll even talk about some of that next week if you want to hear about it.
I do.
And it gets into your family versus your individual out of pocket. You know, that's all listed right there on the line just for quick comparison. And then there'll be, I can give you a link if you really want to dive into the plan, get into some of the coverages and what they all mean. We can do
Also,
that.
can you have that to us?
I can have it to you. I'd say right now, I just don't have my hooked to the network, but you know, tomorrow morning I can have that out to you.
Perfect.
It's already ready. In fact, we used it
I figured it would
make
be.
these decisions.
Okay. I just like to look at it because I just like to see what our employees' options are rather than just throwing in saying, take this or leave it kind of thing. The COG membership is off. Brian Gilbert, Sheriff's Duties
We're
Administrator.
done with that, so.
Yeah.
It's COG.
Okay, now we're going into,
COG membership.
no, that was taken off.
Oh, we took that on?
Yeah.
Okay,
Do you
all
have any
right.
commissioner comments? Mr. Wiltsey?
Just have a few updates regarding some of the meetings I've been to lately. EMS, we had an EMS meeting just prior to the meeting tonight. We have hired a new director out there. His name is John Proctor. He comes with over 25 years of EMS fire experience from down south.
No, we're lucky.
We heard a great report, and John started on the 14th. We've heard a great report from many of our team members out there, how he's already, the feel of the fit is there. So we're very pleased with that. I think John's gonna bring a lot to the table. Again, he has a lot of experience. It's sad to see Justin go. Justin's still doing some work with us, helping with the transition, which we greatly appreciate. But I think we found a real good fit for our new director out there. So we're excited about that. We did, accept the resignation of the assistant director. And we will be, starting interviews soon for, a new assistant director, but the title is actually gonna be now a deputy director. So we'll be, putting that out there, for in-house, current team members, which we agreed, completely with, the director on that. We feel that's a smart move, especially to help with the sustainability of the EMS. And then also happy to report that, this past year, number wise, financially wise, we were in a much better position, coming out at the end than we have in years and years and years. So that's always, a good thing to report. DHHS meeting, we didn't have a quorum last week, and I had that meeting. We had another one of our, law enforcement / jail transition meetings prior to, that EMS meeting today. Again, like I said, the communication with the, undersheriff, especially who's quarterbacking this, he really is the main part of those meetings. We had a lot of the stakeholders there. Some questions were asked and some things they're continuing to work on, and we know we've got a lot of challenges and we're gonna continue to face them head on and work really hard to get through all this. And we will stay consistent with these meetings. As of right now, they're scheduled for every 2 weeks, and we'll continue to have them scheduled for as long as we need to have them. Just a couple more things. We had opioid settlement committee meeting, last Thursday. We're really getting close to the meat and the potatoes of that. We realize the importance of that, the need for that in our community and our county. We've got some really strong members on that. First, I start a subcommittee with some of the real strong, committee members. And they're gonna really be diving into some of these areas, that we really feel we need focus on. And I don't know exactly when we will start spending money, but we're definitely, getting the right things in place now. So when we do start to spend money on this very important topic, that we feel very confident that that money is being spent and heading in the right direction, and also money being spent that's gonna create sustainability with, the major problem that we have, well, obviously worldwide, but statewide, countywide. So really good to see the direction that is heading. My Mills Township meeting was last week. We've got a new supervisor coming in. Our blight officer did resign. Blight is always a big issue in Skidway and Mills Township. We do have some good momentum there. We've got, some really good, strong, hardworking people there that want to see our community grow and get cleaned up. And that's going to take consistency on the part of the board there and a blight officer that is accountable and going to do their job. So I'm super excited about what the new board's going to bring there, because Skidway and Mills Township does have a lot of momentum. And we are going to be making some great moves there these next 4 years. That's all that I have.
Mr. Scott?
I'll just go over my committee stuff next week, but the one thing I like to say is I'm happy to say that I'm able to go to meetings and just general public and be able to say, finally, we have a budget balanced without using other means, and we have a fund balance projected. And that's something I haven't been able to say in 8 years, and I'm happy to say it. I can say it now.
Good point.
Yeah, and that's the bottom line. That's what we've made a lot of different changes and some additions, some subtractions, but we're able to say the general fund budget is now balanced with the projected fund balance. That's all I got.
Commissioner Mayhew,
Nah, I got nothing.
you have anything?
No, you've heard enough from me tonight.
No, I have to hear one more thing. Are you putting out requests for, let's say, the boiler and the windows and stuff?
So that's broken up into 5 pieces. So you've got boilers, you've got windows, you've got lights, we've got the entrance. And we have those restrooms.
Yeah,
So all 5 of those are just about ready to be put on the street.
okay,
And yeah, so those are a priority. We did some work this week, or I did some work with Craig Huey over at Building Inspections and got the specs that I need for the boilers, which was very helpful. Running into some other issues as we get into this. Well, you can't just change out a boiler. You got to make sure all the mechanics that it needs to connect to are sufficient. So that's got to go into your RFP. I want some diagrams from Brian Stein on those restrooms so that we'll send those right out as part of the package. Builder can look at that and say, this is what I need to do, price it out for us. Yeah, so they're underway and I've got to have them out next week in order for us to have this done by the end of the year.
I don't know much about bathrooms, except I do use them. But it doesn't look like it'd be a big fix to fix.
I don't,
But-
yeah, I think that one will probably be one of the less expense
I think so.
items that we'll
Yeah.
be dealing with, yeah.
So
We
I
have
don't
an inventory of all the windows and everything, so we're well on our way, yeah.
take an inventory of all the lights.
If we did that, got them all.
That's a lot of lights.
There are a lot of lights.
Wow.
I got one more.
Kind of nice with the windows, we make them not so long. You could gotta fill some of that in and make windows smaller. But that would cost money too, so I don't know what that cost would be. Go ahead, Mr. Wilson.
It's one item I forgot. This past Wednesday morning, we did have building security meeting. And a topic that we are looking into is the possibility of moving the metal detector and entrance back to where I feel it should be,
Different.
at the true front entrance where we already have the ADA compliant sidewalks and we're just looking at the pros and cons. We had a very good, strong conversation about it and we're gonna continue to have that, but that is something that we're looking into.
I would hope that could happen. You know,
I'm
I don't know if it can, but I would.
well,
hope
more
that it could.
optimistic than I was. I was concerned about that brick wall that is on, I guess that would be the east side as you're coming in that entrance. And we're looking at, it's not load bearing at all. It's all cosmetic. It's not, it's structurally important. So that's quite helpful because our concern is getting people in out of the weather. Well, if I can move that wall, we can do it. But yeah, this is part of what the RFP process would be. We would have contractor come in and tell us what are the costs for both options, and then we'll have a choice.
That's good. Good to know it's not load bearing.
Right, yeah.
Well then, Brenda, I'd like to make a motion to go into a closed session to discuss collective bargaining under MCL 15.2681C.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a support? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Closed session.
Clean version of the contract.
Okay,
Thank you.
Brenda can sign that, and she can sign this one for you too.
What's that for?
Oh, yeah, though.
I make a motion to come into open session.
I support. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
I make a motion to adjourn.
A second? All in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is closed.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, I'm glad you did that, Craig.
Have a good night, Roger.
You too.
Thank you, sir.
You all right? Yeah. All right.